Okay, boom. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a magnificent guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as inspiration, and that is none other than the legendary production, camera, art, so much more that we're going to learn about today. But just a great uncle and someone who's very kind to myself and my family and who watched us grow up, someone who's always show love and respect to us. So we show nothing but love and respect to him and his family as well. Brother Duane Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother. Now, again, I want to thank you for this platform. And as I was looking at some of your past shows, it reminded me, I know it's called the People's Podcast, Joshua Muhammad, but Brother Joshua reminded me of a section in the Muhammad Speaks we used to have called What Islam Has Done for Me. And every person that you had on your podcast, it always gets around to that. If it was not for Islam, you and I would not be having this conversation about positive things that affect our community.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, well, speaking of that, Brother Duane, as you know, as we spoke offline, the first question we want to know, when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
I love that question, brother, but let me go back. One of the things I want to say before I answer that, I pray Allah guides my spirit and my words to be correct, to be 100% correct, without any hyperbole and without any error or mistake. And so when you asked the question the first time I heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I had to be always related to school. It was around kindergarten. So we're talking maybe 6 years old. And my hearing of the teachings was through my sister who raised me. My mom died when I was 3 or 4. So Sister June raised me. And as you know, coming up in Islam, the things that you remember most are the history of Yaqub, the making of the devil. Those images as a young child stuck in my brain until today. And hearing about the making of the white man. And I know that's very controversial to many people who are listening to this, but my first hearing the teachings was through my sister, who told the history of Yaqub and marching across the deserts and people going into the caves and hillsides of Europe. And again, that had to be kindergarten because I was not taught, Mary had a little lamb or a mother goose. I learned those things eventually, and they were just that, fairy tales to me. But as a child, I was taught the history of the Nation of Islam and the history of Yaqub. And that was my first hearing of the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Oh, praise be Allah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And what was it like being, growing up, prior to 75? What was some of your favorite experiences?
Growing up prior to 75, they used to call that the first resurrection.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and it's okay in its context. My first experience, I'll just try to keep it in chronologic order. The reason why I want to try to do that, Brother Joshua, it reminds me of an event we had with the minister. You called me some kind of extraordinary cameraman. People think of me as a cameraman because that's what they think of when they think of media. And I do that. I am also a photojournalist, cinematographer, editor, all of that, director, producer. But in this context with the minister, I was producing along with the crew. And the minister was going to do it. He has done. And your viewers should see this. It's on the History Makers channel, sponsored by the Library of Congress. A woman came in to the palace, and of course we record those things that the minister do. And she wanted to get a chronologic history of the Most Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from as far back as he can remember up until the present day. And at that time, the minister was, I think, in his 70s. It's hard to tell with the minister when he's in his 70s, 80s, or because he's always the same. But it made me think of your question, and I'm not putting it on the level of the minister's life without a doubt, but I'm going to try to keep it within that timeline.
Yes, sir.
We talked about kindergarten, so I do remember that. And I remember as a young boy in the Nation of Islam, my first going to Muhammad's Temple of Islam in Chicago at 53rd and Greenwood. And again, I told you my sister June during that time was teaching me. She graduated out of high school around 1956, 57. And that was the introduction to my teaching. At 57, I was about, I don't know, 4 years old. Let's see,
Mm,
53 plus 4, 57, yes. And there were three brothers that would come by our home to talk to my sister and then eventually bring us to the temple. Those three brothers were two of the brothers you all may have heard of. One, his name was Wallace Muhammad, known
mm,
as Warathuddin Muhammad. The
mm,
other one was Darnell Kareem. And the
mm,
third one was named Hussein Muhammad, and may Allah be pleased with him. But Hussein's name back then was Wallace. So we had two Wallaces to come visit us. And
mm,
I'm around, like I said, 4 or 5 years old. And I would always stare at Imam Warathuddin Muhammad. Okay. And when they would leave, my sister would say, Duane, why you always stare at Wallace? His name was Wallace at the time. And I'd say his eyes. He looks strange with those eyes. His eyes were hazel colored, for
mm,
those who
mm.
don't know. And I never saw a person with hazel eyes. So as a child, we have no inhibition when it comes to staring people down. And she would say, well, that's not proper to stare at somebody like that. And I was corrected, and I corrected by not staring at him. So out of the three, Darnell Kareem became like a close uncle to our family. And so Darnell Kareem and his wife, Gloria, and all of their children, of course, I became uncles to because we were that close. So if I've known him since the age of 4 or 5, so by the time I became a teenager, his children were younger, so they all called me Uncle Duane, of course.
Mm,
And as
mm.
you know, the Nation of Islam, as brothers, the children's brothers, the brother that you are brother of, his daughters and sons become your nephews and nieces. It's
Yes,
just
sir.
a natural thing. But we mean that in the Nation of Islam. That is real. So as a young brother coming up through the nation, the most eventful part of my life was when you turned the age of 16. Now, you growing up in the nation yourself, you know that at age 16, you become what we call a senior fruit. And that was a big celebratory thing for me to be a senior fruit, because to me, that was being a man. That means
Yes,
I can
sir.
go to the actual FOI classes. Of course, I went to junior fruit and I helped in developing the junior fruit with a couple of other brothers. But becoming 16 and an FOI and reciting your student enrollment,
Mm.
even though you may have been born in the Nation of Islam, you have to recite your student enrollment, just like anybody who stands up and accepts and asks the question, would you like to come and help raise the dead? So at 16, it was just a given. So at 16, that's when it's like my history began in the nation, because you recall the high school time. You yourself can recall when you were in high school, because you're going through a whole lot. That's the adolescent period. You're growing up. You're around people who have a contrary belief than yours, especially if you go to a public school.
Yes, sir.
And I did go to a public school in Chicago,
Mm.
which is called CVS, Chicago Vocational School.
Okay,
But as
okay.
a child, I always wanted to go to the University of Islam, because a lot of the believers that I know, they say, Duane, did you go to the university? I said, no, I was around a lot. But my sister who raised me felt that the nation at that time didn't have all the resources available for a student. So she had me going to a public school, and my forte was art. I've always been in the arts,
Mm.
whether it's martial arts or fine arts. I can
Yes, sir.
always draw. I came out of the womb knowing how to draw. I would draw on the walls and get in trouble. And June would say, you need to guide that towards something that you want to do. And of course, when I'm a child and 9, 10 years old, I had no focus. But I like cartoons. I like drawing the Marvel characters, the DC characters.
Yes,
I
sir.
like the Marvel more for their muscularity. And one day June said, you should try drawing for the paper. Now, the paper we called back then was the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And who were the persons I looked at? Eugene, Majid, Gerald, 2X. So I said, okay, when I get old enough, I'm going to draw for the paper. So let me put this. +233. Let me turn this off, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hopefully you can edit that out. I don't know if you edit these or not, but anyway. So when I was young, I met the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he said, "Brother," and I can't imitate him like the minister. I'll just say what he said. "What would you like to do when you grow up?" And I said, "To draw in your paper, to draw in your newspaper, to draw cartoons." And in my mind, I meant political cartoons like a Gerald 2X. And then life went on. As I said, I turned 16. And at 16, I was a junior in high school. The papers were being delivered to the temple, and we were stacking the papers up like most mosques do today. Papers come in, you stack them up, and they're distributed. I got a phone call while I was stacking the papers up. The secretary said, "Brother Duane X, you have a phone call." Now, remember, this is the early days of me becoming a senior fruit. So I'm taken aback. Who would be calling me during temple time a telephone call? So I go into the office and pick up the phone, and it's Brother Eugene Majid. Brother Majid is the brother. Okay. Brother Eugene Majid was the art director of the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. He's the brother, for those who know the Muhammad Speaks, that did the majority of illustrations. And just one aside, any illustration that you saw that Brother Eugene Majid drew, I found this out once I got a little older. It was from the inspiration of the Honorable the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In other words, the messenger or dear holy apostle will instruct Brother Majid, this is what I want to see. So Majid's drawings will be based on instructions from the dear holy apostle. Okay, so let's go back. Answer the phone is Brother Majid. And he says, "Is this Brother Duane X?" I'm like, "Yes, sir, who's this?" "This is Brother Majid." So I'm not thinking Eugene Majid of the newspaper. I'm like, what Majid? "Brother, this is Brother Eugene Majid from Muhammad Speaks, brother. I'd like to interview you. Can you bring your portfolio down here tomorrow?" Now, I'm a junior in high school, majoring in commercial art, which would be in line for working for the newspaper. And now I'm surprised. Number one, how do you know I was at FY class? How do you know I was here and what my interest is in the newspaper? And he said, "Well, brother, can you bring your portfolio down?" But I knew I had part of a portfolio. And then he said, "What time can you come down?" Again, Brother Josh, I'm in high school. I'm on the wrestling team. And I also have karate class after school. Okay. I said, "Well, Brother Majid, as soon as I get through with wrestling practice and I go to karate class, I can come down." So he chided and he said, "Wrestling, brother, that's sport and play, man. How you going to deliver the dead to the Lamb of God on the wrestling team? You didn't say nothing about the karate class." And I said, "Oh, okay, brother. Well, I'll just come after class. I won't go to wrestling practice or I won't go to karate class. Fine." The next day, I bring my portfolio, my little shabby little portfolio, because remember, I'm in high school, brother. I can draw, but I'm not like the greatest of all time, okay? So I'm in the office at 2548 South Federal, and for the older viewers, they'll know that that's the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. It was located 2548 South Federal in Chicago. I'm in the office opening up my portfolio, handed over to him, and he's going through each page. And he's barely looking at my illustrations. I got illustrations in pen and ink. I got charcoal. I got life drawings. And he's just kind of glancing at it, closes it up, puts it to the side. And he said, "Brother, when do you think you can start?" And I'm like, "Start what, brother?" He said, "Brother, start working here with me at Muhammad Speaks newspaper." I'm like, "Oh, can I come right after school? I'm a junior in high school, brother. I got a whole another year to go." And he said, "Okay, brother, I tell you what, we'll work around your schedule. When you get through with your school classes and your martial arts classes, come on down to the plant and you'll be working up under me in the art department." Totally excited. I tell my sister, remember, my sister June is raising me.
Yes, sir.
And she's very nonchalant about it. I say, June, I'm working, I'm going to be working at the press under Majid. And then she said, all praises due to Allah. You just make sure you do a good job. And I'm like, she's not asking me, well, how did you get the job or anything like that? And I'm like, okay. So I go to work at Muhammad Speaks newspaper, which was very eye-opening. And for those who are watching this, if they get any old Muhammad Speaks and see what's called the progress section, that's the section where the artists did what they did. And each page was, of course, influenced by the Dear Holy Apostle. And Brother Majid actually let me start doing illustrations similar to his. Then I got better and better with it, okay? Now, one of the downsides about working for Muhammad Speaks newspaper, as the believers, we did not get paid much. But the lost founds that worked for the paper were paid scale if they worked for the Sun-Times or the Tribune, okay? So I can remember my salary. Again, I'm in high school, so $57 a week was not a lot of money to me. So what I had to do was jobs early in the morning. I would clean with janitors, cleaning up buildings. I always had that hustling spirit to make money because I knew that being at Muhammad Speaks, I wasn't going to make a lot of money. Now, the reason why I mentioned the salaries of the what we call lost founds that work for the nation, I asked my brother Majid, because after a while, I got a little rebellious. I'm like, man, wait a minute. They can go outside. They can smoke their cigarettes. They don't have to come to the temple. They don't have to sell no papers. They don't have to pay their duty. We call it duty or charity. Duty is what we paid every week. And for the old timers, they'll remember it was $8.30 a week. Okay. And Majid told me, Brother Duane, look, this is to attract our people. We want to attract the professional Blacks in America to come work here. And we sacrifice for them to come. And again, now I'm around 18 years old, and it's not settling well with me, what he's telling me. And I say, but Brother Majid, I understand that, but after we've been working here for a while, shouldn't we get a salary that's commensurate so that we can live? Because Brother Majid, I'm making money selling the paper, I'm selling this and doing that and help cleaning up with janitors in the morning. He said, well, brother, that's part of your sacrifices. And I said, okay. So I went with that. Now we're going to fast forward to 1975, okay? 1975, I'm working at Muhammad Speaks newspaper. And we're putting the paper together in what's called the composing room. And we have the radio on in the composing room, and I'm laying out the paper. And the announcement comes over the radio. Elijah Muhammad, leader of the Nation of Islam, the sect, they call it the sect, S-E-C-T, the sect, Nation of Islam, has succumbed to a heart attack and has been taken to Mercy Hospital. This is 1975, around February. I'm 22 years old. I hear that. I turn to the brother to my right. His name is Charlie Lee. May Allah be pleased with him. He became Muhammad Ali, not Muhammad Ali, the boxer. Charlie Lee was a well-known, one of the bodyguards of Elijah Muhammad, or what we would call the E-team today.
Yes, sir.
And I turn to Charlie Lee. I say, Charlie, man, these white folks will do anything to keep our people away from Savior's Day. Savior's Day was right around the corner. And Charlie Lee looked at me with this serious expression and said, man, everything is real. That's what we used to say back in the day. If you ever got spooky or you were getting too far off course, he said, man, everything is real. You better make some phone calls. And I looked at Charlie and I went back to laying out the paper and I looked at him again and he gave me that look. I tell you the look he gave me. For you movie buffs, there's a movie called No Country for Old Men.
Yes, sir.
And the killer was in the gas station with this old guy.
Yes, sir.
And the old guy, remember, he flipped the coin for this guy for him to get it right. And the old guy got it right. And the old guy was going to put the coins with his other coin that he won. And as I can't remember the character's name, he had the bob haircut, the killer. When he walked out, he had this certain look. And that's how Charlie Lee looked at me. Man, you better make that call. So I went into the office and I called my sister June. And I say, hey, June, did you hear what's happening on the radio? June, being the highly spiritual woman that she is, her response was this: Duane, don't you understand about the death plot and the escape of the death plot? And I like, June, I hear what you're saying, but I'm telling you what I heard on the radio. And so I'm not understanding what June is saying. She's very calm about it. And I said, is Abdullah there? Which is my nephew, her son. And Abdullah gets on the phone. I say, Abdullah, you heard what happened on the radio? He said, Uncle, I'm on my way down to Mercy. And I'll call you once I get to the hospital, okay? So now I'm totally confused because he's on his way to the hospital. That means there's some legitimacy in this report that I heard on the radio. He gets there. Sometime later, he calls me back while I'm at the press. You'll hear me refer to Muhammad Speaks newspaper as the press, as the plant, or Muhammad Speaks. And he calls me and he's very emotional. That's not my daddy. That's not my daddy. The mole is on the wrong side. He had too much hair. And by the way, for those who don't know, my nephew, Abdullah Yassin, which is my nephew, is also the son of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. That means that my sister was one of the wives, which makes me, I guess, a nephew, okay? And that's what we should have prefaced it with. So Abdullah's on the phone. He's very emotional. I say, Abdullah, who else is there with you? Let me talk to somebody else. And when you had Brother Joshua on your show, he probably talked about this section of it. Who all was in the room? It was Joshua, I believe, a brother by the name of Kamal Kareem, Aleph Muhammad, and I may be missing, and my nephew, Abdullah. So Abdullah put Aleph on the phone. Aleph worked with me at the press. He worked in the photography area. I worked in the art department. And if anybody knows Aleph, he talks real cool, like Steven Seagal. Hey, D, salam alaikum, brother. And I'm like, yeah, Aleph, what's going on, man? What? We can't talk about this kind of stuff on the telephone. Look, I'm going to talk to you when we get to the press. Yeah, but Aleph, and he hangs up on me. Now, let me qualify what Aleph did to me. This was one of the things I was reluctant about coming to your show, but I may have talked to you about this before. Back in the day, coming up in the nation, we were a very secretive organization. For example, if you were not going to the mosque, or what we called the temple at that time, there was a phone number that you called into. You only said very little. I'm going to give you an example of that call. I guess the world can know now. You would call in and it would go like this. This is Fruit 828A. That was my fruit number, or what we call the nation's number. This is Fruit 828A, not coming to work. Not coming to temple, work. Okay, I gave my identification number, and I'm not coming to the temple, and my reason is work. Brother would say on the other end, which would be the secretary, 10-4, you hang up. That's the limit of your conversation. Not domestic issue. Hey, brother, how's the family? None of that. So we were taught to be very confidential. I guess that's the best word. So I've always felt a little reluctant because you have a wonderful show. And brother, and it's a great platform. And I've always been reluctant in talking about nation's business. That's the way we were taught. And then I saw Joshua. Oh, man. Josh was telling everything about everything, and he's been a witness to most of that. Then as I listened to it, I said, but Josh is very much like his father when it comes to telling the story of his experiences. And the minister will tell you about his illness, his prostate issues, and he'll go into detail. And I know one of his sons, and I won't say who because he didn't give me permission to say his name. He don't like when his dad does that. I said, man, but why not, man? He's being transparent. He said, yeah, but I don't want the enemy knowing about my dad's illness. That's a private thing. I said, well, hey, that's your father, man, right? He said, yeah, that's Pops, but I ain't gotta like it. But I understood what he was saying. He's very protective of his father, and those who are listening probably got it already, which I'm talking about. So I understand that. So now when we come to what we're talking about now, me hearing of on the report of the radio, it became very confusing for me because this is not prior to 75. This is 75 when you ask me the question. And I didn't go to the event that year. I stayed at home in my bed crying like a baby. because I was totally confused. We were not prepared for the departure of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Mm.
Unlike today, the minister has blessed us with so many tools for us to use upon his departure. We have the study guides. We have multiple lectures online in DVD format. And for all the old heads that haven't even gotten a DVD player, we got them in VHS. We got them in CD format. We got them in podcasts, the People's Podcast through Brother Joshua Muhammad. So there are so many tools available to us that is preparing us for his departure. We did not have that. We had a few albums, The Judgment. We had the books. We had all of the books. And I was blessed to help put together two of his latest books of the Dear Holy Apostle. But they were really articles written from the papers before Muhammad Speaks, the Amsterdam News. So it was a composition of his lectures. It was a composition of his articles of what those books were. That's all that we had. So now the messenger is absent. And me, like many other Muslims, were totally confused. I wasn't spiritual enough to know what in the hell was going on. All I knew that things started changing rapidly, okay? So now that's 75, and I'm gonna go backwards now, even though we're on that timeline, I have to go back to 1963.
Mm.
And the reason why I'm going to 1963, because it would have set up who my nephew is, how I discovered that, or was told.
Mm.
I don't know if discovered is the right word, but in 1963, my nephew Abdul Yassin was 3 years old. I was 10. And we had in the apartment a huge drawing of the messenger. He was holding the Quran, but it was what we call an art of relief, meaning you can go up to the painting and you can feel the fingers. They were released from the painting. If you rub the fez, it was a material. So it was a very unusual painting. And one day, my sister June gathered the three youngest from my family, me being the baby, my brother Gregory, may Allah be pleased with him, and Jatan, may Allah be pleased with her. And she said, "Look, come on, have a seat and look at the picture of the dear Holy Apostle." So we're looking up on the wall at the messenger. Now she said, "Now look at Abdullah." I'm looking at Abdullah, looking at she kept saying, "Now look at Abdullah and look at the picture. What do you all see?" So I was the first one saying, "He's got a chin just like the messenger. He got that little pointy chin." He said, "Keep looking." And then I said, "You know what? He looks just like the dear Holy Apostle." And June replied by saying, "He is the messenger's son." Now, remember, I'm 10, Josh. The first thing came out of my mouth was, "Boy, I'm telling all my friends, man, I can't wait for school tomorrow." She said, "No, it would be out of season, Duane, for you to do that." And I said, "Well, can I wait till the wintertime? Because it'll be colder." That's what I thought season was, right? And she said, "No, that means that it's not the right time to tell anyone. You have to keep it a secret." Remember, that was easy for me to transition into because we are a very secretive, quote, organization. Now, you got to back up. In 1963, November, there was someone who was assassinated of great renown. That particular day, I stayed home from school and I was watching television. And November 1963, that's when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I saw the news reports on television. I saw it. It was live. And as a young Muslim, I didn't respond like most people who were hurt from it. I was like, wow. It was to me like a movie. And I couldn't wait for my friends to get out of school because this is something I could tell them. When I knew school was letting out, I went out of our apartment. This is at 83rd and Ingleside for those from Chicago. And I waited for my friends to come down the street from school. And I gleefully told them, "Man, they assassinated y'all president, man. They shot him like through his head," right? I'm being gleeful and boasting. And when my sister gets home and I tell her what I did, she reprimanded me. "You don't do that, Duane. We never show glee in the death of any person, you will apologize to all of your friends. But I say, June, he was like a king devil. He was the president of the United States. No, it doesn't matter. All right. The next day I had to go to all my friends that I told that to. Now, if you remember, during that time, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad warned his ministers, when you speak that Sunday, do not say anything about that assassination. Number one, it would put a lot of danger to the brothers who are selling the paper in the streets. It would put Muslims in danger, because now you're going against a man that, if you looked in most black folks' homes during that time, you had three pictures on that wall. You had Jesus, Martin Luther King, and John F. Kennedy. Now, for the older blacks, many of them had President Roosevelt on their wall, because President Roosevelt was their man during that time. We're talking about back in the 30s now. So I learned that lesson, that, okay, you have to be a respecter. So now when June told me of Abdullah, who he is rather, I had to keep that in me. I kept that in me for 30 years. And I finally told one friend, a good friend of mine, and may Allah be pleased with him, his name was Brother Ali. And we were coming to the home, and we were in the garage, and I said, Lee, I got it, because him and I were very close. We were like blood brothers. I brought him in the Nation of Islam. He was in my karate class. I used to teach karate back in the day, and he was one of my students. And he was very bright. He came in the Nation and became a minister. That's how sharp this brother was. And I said, Lee, I got to tell you something, man, but you can't tell nobody. This is like this is one of the deepest secrets I ever had that I've never told nobody, and I'm telling you. And I said, Abdullah and Aisha, my nephew and niece, their father is the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now, this is a grown man. He responded like I did when I was 10. He said, oh, man, for real? Oh, D. I keep saying D, just so everybody knows. People give me the nickname D for whatever reason. My name is Duane, but I guess D is what they call me. He said, D, oh, man, I can't wait to tell. Man, I got to tell I said, no, Lee, you can't tell nobody at this time. Oh, man, your word is bond to the messenger. You're not going to tell anybody. In the Christian world, they say, I cross my heart and hope to die. We say, man, say your word is bond, that you ain't going to tell nobody. He said, my word is bond, man, I won't tell nobody. So I tell my sister June, I say, June, you're going to have to forgive me. I told Lee about Abdullah and Aishan, who their father was. She said to me at that, oh, no, you can tell anybody you want. Now, this is back in the 70s. And at that time, only a few persons in the Nation of Islam knew about the wives. When I say knew about the wives, they know them personally. Of course, I got to know all the wives because of my sister being friends, and I would meet each one. Evelyn, all of them. Paul's mom, every one of them. So they've been knowing me since a little boy, but it was a secret that we kept. And I said, well, what do you mean the time is right? She said, well, remember I told you years ago that you don't say the truth, even out of season, it can be detrimental. And I said, but the truth could be said at any time. She said, yes, you can tell the truth, but sometimes certain people can't handle the truth. And you have to pick the right season or the time to speak that truth, which I came to understand it later, which is what you do. So now we're up to 75. We're back to 75, and the announcement was on the radio. And now Muhammad Speaks is going to go through its changes. Now, the Muhammad Speaks was where a lot of the officials would meet at. Some days after Savior's Day, 1975, you had all of the sons meeting at what we call the press, Muhammad Speaks. We had offices up on the second floor. Junior, which is Elijah Muhammad Jr., Raymond Sharif, the Supreme Captain, the first officer, I think it was Brother Albert. There was so many of them. And one of the brothers that was going up to the stairs that I remember, I took umbrage to. His name is John Ali. John Ali, I believe, is still living. I had an issue with this brother because I might as well say it, and this is one of the things that I was reluctant in saying. As a young Muslim, I never got a good vibe from this brother. Okay? And one of the reasons was the way that he addressed the believers. See, back then, you have to be very careful with how you address the believers, because the believer, when you're in a position of authority, you have to be very careful, because those are the followers of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. They're not yours. So you have to be very careful in the way we address each other, getting in arguments with each other. That was like unheard of.
mm,
Muslims fighting, or what we call dissing, or playing the dozens. None of that stuff was done. This brother, to me, didn't have the spirit of a believer. That's what I'm
mm,
trying to say.
mm,
So they started moving people around and changing who the editor would be. The editor at that time, a brother by the name of Charles 67X, who became Aski. I don't know if you ever had him, but we've lost Brother Aski. He's no longer with us. I came to the Muhammad Speaks when a brother by the name of John Woodford was the editor. So now we get up to Brother Askia. He's the editor. He was Charles 67X at the time. And I told brother, I'm going to have an issue with John Ali, man, if he's over anything, because this brother, did he even go through processing class? Did he get his X?
mm.
Said, brother, the messenger gave him John Ali, brother. He has a holy name. This is the brother that helped put together the Muhammad Speaks newspaper. He's the one that helped develop the message to the black man. He was behind all of it. Very brilliant brother. I just didn't like the way he dealt with believers.
Mm.
So they promoted a good friend of mine and a brother named Saladin Muhammad. Saladin, we call him Sonny. He was one of the sons of Emmanuel Muhammad. Emmanuel Muhammad was the eldest of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad's sons. So we were very close. So Sonny came to me, hey, D, they made me a manager, man. And I'm like, good, man, you're a manager. Then I need you to do something for me. Keep John Ali away from me. Yeah, remember, I'm 22 years old. I'm a hothead militant Muslim who didn't have the depth, the spiritual depth to deal with certain things, right? And I was a little hot-tempered, so that lets you know my lack of maturation. He said, man, don't worry about John, man. Just do what you do. D, you be okay. I'm like, no, I don't like the way he talked to believers, man. He said, oh, don't worry about it. So one day, he comes in the composing room, John Ali, and he's talking to the believers who've been there forever and talking down to them in a very disrespectful way, I felt. Then he made a beeline toward me while I'm working on the paper, putting together the progress section. That's the area that I worked in at the Muhammad Speaks. And before this brother could say a word, man, I went off. I said, brother, don't you say nothing to me disrespectful. Blah, 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 blah. And I don't know what came over. He said, brother, we need to go upstairs. I'm like, okay, yeah, we do that. So it was me, him, and brother Saladin, Sonny, call him Sonny. Sonny sat next to me, and John Ali was across from me. He said, brother, you have an issue with me? And I said, yeah, I got an issue with you. When the last time you been to an FOI class? When the last time you had some papers under your arm, brother? I don't know where all of this was coming from. I was saying all this to say, man, I don't see you doing anything as a Muslim. Yeah, on Savior's Day, you will come out and do announcements because you were the national secretary at the time. And he said, brother, you sound, and then at the same time, Sonny is tapping my thigh, man. He just slapping me. D, be cool, man. He didn't say shut up, but I knew what he meant by that. After a while, I kind of just had his hand off of me. Come on, Sonny, be cool with that. You want to tell this man off. And then John Ali said these words. This is what triggered me. He said, brother, you sound like you want to get fired. I said, no, you don't have to fire me. Man, I quit. Of course, this is all emotion talking, brother Josh. I get up and I walk out. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, what in the world have I done? Go home, and who do I tell first? It's my sister. I'm like, yeah, June, I think I made a real big mistake. John Ali was telling me, and I lost my temper. And then she said, Duane, well, she used to always tell me when I get confused. This was the famous saying of Muslims back in the day, and all the old timers looking at this, they'll agree. She said, Duane, seek refuge in Allah. Right. And, when you hot-headed, what does that mean? All I know is I walked away from my career, not a job. Remember, I majored in this in commercial art at high school. And I'm like, oh, man, what am I going to do? Oh, Lord, what am I going to do? So now I'm sitting around thinking, should I go back and apologize? Well, no, June said, seek refuge in Allah and pray. I said, let me pray on this then. And I thought about it, I reflected on it, and I prayed on it, and I said this, Josh, which is what got me here today. I said, you know what? I'm going to change my profession. I always wanted to get into films, always wanted to get into television. And what sparked that for me, we got to go back now to like maybe 1972. PBS came into the Muhammad Speaks to do a documentary on us. I'm working in the art department. They're bringing in all this equipment, these huge lights, cameras with the magazines on them. When I say camera with a magazine, this is before the age of videotape. You had the actual magazines with film inside, 35 millimeter film. So I look at the crew and it's all white. Got one brother off on the side. I make a beeline to the brother. I say, hey, man, how do you get into this industry? This looks like photography to me. He said, well, do you know anything about photography? I say, yeah, I'm a commercial artist. So photography is one of the tools that we use. He said, man, you need to go to film school. I said, is there any film school in Chicago? He said, yeah, the Community Film Workshop on Wabash. I'm like, good. I said, what do I do? He said, man, go sign up in there, man, and go ahead and get the skills so that you can do exactly what we're doing. And as a Muslim, all you got to be is given the hint. And I went down to the Community Film Workshop the next day, did the walkthrough. I was fired up, but you know what? It wasn't time. Life just got in the way. Because at Muhammad Speaks, you did not work a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or 7 to 3. You stayed as long as you had to stay until the job was done. There was no such thing as an 8-hour day because we felt we were owners. So as an owner, you don't have a 9 to 5 day. So that got in the way. But remember, now I'm free because I left Muhammad Speaks. And I decided to go to film school. And I chose Columbia College in Chicago. Majored in broadcast communications. Came there as a serious student. I didn't come there to get into your fraternity. I didn't come there to flirt with any girl in a sorority. I came here to get my degree so I can get into television. Okay? So, I think I'm a freshman at the time. And I was taking a TV production class, and you had to create an effect. My effect was called rainfall, meaning that you had to create rainfall within whatever you're doing, whether it's a short film, if it's a music video, or whatever. My production was based on a music video of a song by Love Unlimited called Walking in the Rain with the One I Love. Josh, you would not remember that. Pops would remember it. Okay. But it was the wife of Barry White, and they had a little group. And it's called Walking in the Rain with the One I Love, right? And it was done so well. I directed it, produced it, did a little bit of everything. The teacher of the department, his name was Thane Lyman. He's no longer with us. He pulled me to the side. He said, hey, what TV station you work at? I'm like, I'm a freshman here. He said, look, I want to talk to you in the office. He takes me in his office. He's the head of the broadcast department. And he worked at WGN on television. He'd been there since he'd been there so long. It was 6 months after WGN opened. He'd been there. He was an old timer from way back. He said, look, you got a special skill set. And I would like for you to come work for Columbia College as a TA. Again, TA, what does that mean? It's a teacher's assistant or technical assistant. You seem to know all the equipment. You seem to have, what we call in the business a fast study. Meaning you can come in and learn it quick. I'm like, okay, cool. My question was, look, will this help me to land a position in television? That's what I need to know. He said, your chances will be better than some and not as good as others. And I said, okay, I got a real good one for you, Mr. Lyman. My last name is Muhammad. What about me being a Muhammad? Will that cause some prejudice against me and getting into business? He said, absolutely, positively, if you bring it up. You never bring your religion or your politics to work, Duane. No need for that. They will know by your name who you are, but you will be judged by how well you do a thing. You just stay professional. The way I saw you comport yourself in doing that production, that's why I called you in the office. So I got hired at Columbia College. I was a student, plus I was also a teacher's assistant, a technical assistant. Time goes by. I'm in my junior year now. And one of the directors that I was a TA for, and I'm going to say his name because I give his brother much credit. His name is Ron Vassar. Ron Vassar, he taught directing. And he came to me, he said, hey, Duane, look, I'm leaving Channel 44 to go over to CBS. You should apply for my job. And this man
Mm,
is a director in television, which is what I want to be. But I'm a junior in college, man. Didn't do any internships or nothing like that. He said, look, you're a sharp guy. There's no guarantee you're going to get it. But look, I'll make a recommendation for you, but just do the interview. It'll be a good experience for you. It's called SNS TV Channel 44 in Chicago. And most of the older heads, again, in Chicago, remember, we had pro wrestling, we did DePaul basketball, we did hockey games, we did everything. It's an independent station, okay? Which is now Telemundo, by the way.
mm,
So I go on the interview, guys interviewing me. Every question he's asked me, I'm just knocking them out of the field, man, because it's real simple. It's what I do. Because not only was I a student, Josh, I was doing what we call freelance productions. I
mm,
was doing what we called back then industrial television. I was doing what we call the Bud Billiken Parade. I was doing camera for that. I did a little bit of everything because, again, I made myself known. Even if I was on a shoot to pull cable, I just wanted to be present. So those persons who saw my spirit and how I caught on real quick, they said, look, man, we got this happening. Would you be interested in that? I'm still a student, but I
mm,
was not like your average student, okay? And remember, this is also in the absence of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. I went to Columbia College from 1977 to 80, okay?
mm,
So now, in the interview, it kind of reminded me of the interview I had with Eugene Majid back in 69. He says, when can you start? Those are the best words you can hear in an interview. And naturally, I responded, hey, you know, I'm a junior. I got a whole year to go at Columbia. He said, look, I tell you what, we'll work around your schedule. Who else told me that? Majid
mm,
told me.
mm,
So I said, oh, okay. So whenever I was done at Columbia, I go straight to WSNS TV, Channel 44. And when I get in, I was coming in there with suits on and the whole bit. They say, hey, what you got a suit on? You know, as you know, a Muslim, that's like our uniform. I said,
yes, sir.
well, I just dress this way. He said, well, look, when you go out to the park and shoot baseball, you got to wear what we wear. I didn't have a pair of jeans, Brother
Mm,
Josh. I had to
mm,
go buy some jeans so I could look like the other technicians working because our uniform is a suit. Fine. I learned how to adapt depending on what particular job we had. And I worked at Channel 44, did every position in television: technical director, director, lighting, audio, studio camera, field camera, satellite, everything, because it's an independent station, but it is a union station. Time goes by. There's an invention called subscription television.
mm,
Subscription television was before cable in Chicago. There was an antenna that would be put on your roof of your home that would point toward either the Sears or the Hancock, because that's where the receivers are for you to receive your signal.
okay, okay.
One of them was called Spectrum, and the other one was called On TV. And guess who On TV went and purchased? The station I was working at. So by
Mm,
them purchasing Channel 44 and then becoming more highly not robotic, but it didn't need as many personnel as before. So my being on the lower rung, who was one of the first persons to get laid off?
mm,
Yours truly, Brother Duane Muhammad, right? So now I'm a little depressed now because I got a wife and baby. Matter of fact, my daughter was born. It was 79. Naima was born. And now I'm a little stressed now because I'm thinking I'll be at Channel 44 for the rest of my life, just like I thought I'd be at Muhammad Speaks for the rest of my life, right? And this old projector guy, his name was Jim Starbuck. He was a projectionist. Back in the day, for those who are watching, they used to have projectionists at a theater. When you go
mm,
to a theater, there was a person back there actually changed the reels. But
mm,
then when it turned to digital, they had the young guy who collected your ticket would run up there and hit a button. But back in the day, you had to change those mags with 35 millimeter film. So this old timer, Jim Starbuck, always had a cigar hanging out of his mouth. Say, Muhammad, come over here. You look a little stressed because they're laying you off. I'm like, yeah, man, I got a house with a high interest rate. I got a little baby girl. Yes. He said, look, I'm going to tell you how to do this. Don't even think about getting a job. Just relax. You got 2 weeks and then think about it. I walked away from this guy. I say, he is totally insane, right?
mm,
His point was, look, you're a sharp guy. You're going to find something. And I'm like, yeah, okay, right. He was telling me in the worldly way, seek refuge in Allah and pray. He just didn't use those words, right? So some days later, my union steward came to me. I'll say his name too, my dear brother, Henry Cheatham. He was our union steward. He said, Muhammad, look here. They're hiring over at NBC, man. You're a big shot. You can probably get that job. They got it for an editor. Okay. Now remember, Josh, I told you I did every position in television except one, and that was videotape editing. And that's what the position was for. And I say, hey, Henry, man, we only edit transverse tape. Transverse tape is 2-inch tape, and we also edit what we call 1-inch tape, but not 3/4 inch tape. He said, man, just go take a class somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got a little time. So I took a 3-day class, knocked it out, went to NBC for the interview, set me down, and it was for 90 days. It wasn't a full-time permanent position. He said, look, this position is for 90 days, but the budget won't allow us to take you over 90 days. We'll let you go for a week and you can come back if the money is available to hire you on as a temporary. That was the position. And I'm like, I'm about to be laid off at 44. I'll take my chances with NBC. Came in with a little suit on every day. He said, hey, man, where you going? You don't have to wear a suit. I say, hey, man, this is my uniform. But as an editor, I could wear my suit because I wasn't going out doing fires or running with the police, shooting, going after somebody, right? Those first 3 months, I impressed the heck out of them. It was into my last month. It was an editor, and I definitely can't say their names on this. It was an editor and a reporter trying to get a spot cut. And the reporter came out pulling, I can't work with this guy. Get me somebody else. I was still in training at NBC. The supervisor said, Muhammad, go in, cut the spot. I'm like, okay, good. I got my chance to shine. I sit down, I see, where you at? Edit, put the piece together. It was getting down to the seconds. Pull the tape out the machine, running down the hallway, hand it to playback. They put it in the machine. There's the machine going. You see the countdown, 3, 2. You hear the technical director say, play tape. Play it, and they took it on air. It was just that close, just like you see in the movies. Now, what did the reporter say about me? This is a guy that's there as a temp. Man, what's your name? Like, Duane, man, you're the greatest thing since sliced wheat bread. I'm like, oh, well, thank you. He goes back to the room where all the other, man, this new guy, Muhammad, man, this guy is so fast. So now there's a reputation on somebody who's not even a permanent employee. So the guy that was having trouble editing, he came to me, he said, look, man, how did you do that so fast? I'm like, hey, man, that's what I do, right? And he introduced himself to me. He said, do you know who I am? I'm like, yeah, I heard who your name is and everything. He said, yeah. He said, you know, I met the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, all those interviews with herb cups in it and all that, that was me on camera. I've been in his home and the whole bit. I'm like, and I'm, reluctant because he was kind of in a braggadocious kind of spirit telling me. He said, look, I'm going to bring the tapes tomorrow and show you. He brought his tapes where he was in Vietnam, as a cameraman with bullets flying past him. He was there in Pittsburgh, where it was called the Suicide Bridge, where he would climb up the bridge with his camera to try to talk them out of committing suicide. And he would record that. If he got them down, he would also record if he couldn't get them down with them leaping, right? That was his reel. You always develop what we call a reel in film or television. And remember, I told you in the arts, you get a production folder together to show your artwork. So he showed me all of his stuff. He said, yeah, I met the old man. That's what he referred. I said, whoa, man. Yeah, we don't refer to him as the old man. Matter of fact, I almost said his name. I said, man, that's very disrespectful. And since you and I are getting to know each other, you can refer to him as the dear holy apostle, okay? And out of respect for me, he said, wait a minute, I'm not gonna be able to. I say, dear holy apostle. You don't say the old man. The respect you have for your father, would you call him the old man? And he liked that. So he took he liked me, and he was also a pilot. He said, look, if you show me how to edit like you did, I'll show you how to fly a plane. In my mind, I'm thinking of the type that you and I get on to a jet. No, it was a little Cessna. That's the one with the little 2 propellers. And when he showed me the picture of his plane, I was like, okay, I'll try that. And we go up in the plane. And I don't know if you've ever been in a Cessna. It sounds like this. Like it's
Mm,
going to turn off any moment. So we
mm,
take off and we're up in the air. He said, look, I'm going to take you around in your neighborhood. He's flying me around. I say, look, if this engine stopped, what would happen to us up here? He said, well, we just glide in. I say, but would you have much control of the plane? He said, not that much, but we can glide in and hopefully land. But I said, what if you get some power lines? He said, well, now that's when you take your head and you put it between your A and you say goodbye. After that conversation, I didn't go up with him anymore, right? So now this person I'm talking about, he had been in television since we call the film days. Remember, I came in television in like 1970, 78, 79. So news was still being shot on film. They used 16 millimeter film. They were transitioning over to videotape. So these guys that I work with all were from the film days, and the older guys were from radio days. I don't want to go too long, but how long we have, Josh? Because I'm only in 19.
take your time. Take your time. Take your
Okay.
time.
So now I didn't get the bug for flying, is what I'm saying. So 90 days went by. NBC, they called me up to the office and say, look, as we told you, this money was only for 90 days and we're going to have to let you go. But look, we're definitely calling you back. So I'm thinking in my mind, cool. I got about a week or two vacation. I'm coming back for another 90 days. I'll do 90 days until I find something else. So I'm sending my reels out to different places. The next 90 days come up. And I think 2 months into the 90 days, they call me up in the office. And they say, and I'm surrounded by managers and vice presidents and a whole bit. I say, man, this is serious. I had no idea what they're calling me up there for. And they said, look, you've been a temporary here, and this is your second go around. Would you be interested in working permanently? Now, permanent is the position that you're looking for. I wasn't even what we call a vacation relief. A vacation relief is you're working there because so many different people go on vacations in the summer. A temporary, you can be hired 90 days, 2 months, or whatever. And I hesitated. And I said, can I get back to you? And all of them looked at each other shocked, but I was pulling a prank. I said, I'll be glad to work permanently. Okay. And we all shook hands and I became a permanent editor for NBC TV. Now I want to relate NBC and the minister with this because he has something to do with this as well. I got hired at NBC in around 1979, 1980. All right. I'm working at NBC for a while. My nephew is coming around because Minister Farrakhan is rebuilding the Nation of Islam. So my nephew comes by the house, him and another brother named Wendell, may Allah be pleased with him. And they had the Final Call newspaper. They had that real big one. If you look at the very first Final Call, had a real big, and they said, Uncle, we with the minister rebuilding the nation. And oh yeah, that's cute, man. That's really nice. Yeah, rebuild. That's really nice. So let me see the paper. So I'm looking at the paper, and it wasn't put together very well. Because remember, my background was working at Muhammad Speaks. That's a professional laid paper. So I'm doing a critique of the paper. And I'm like, man, the lining is off on this. So naturally, my nephew, with his wisdom, say, well, Uncle, why don't you come and help the minister put the paper together right? I'm like, man, I'm working and I don't have time. My sister June was somewhere in the distance say, Duane, look, why don't you go work for the minister, get paid, and that'll help pay some of your tuition costs. I'm like, yeah, Abdullah, hook that up for me. So my motivation in helping the minister back in 1981 or 80 during that time was to help him with that paper, get paid, pay off my tuition debt. So Abdullah hooked up the meeting. I meet him at his home on 94th and Damon, me and the minister sitting in his living room. You know the minister, he's a very personable, affable brother. He's not even talking about me getting hired. He goes, Brother Duane, what happened to that book that you, Aleph, and Tiamo were putting together? Now, this is 1972 with me, Aleph, and Tiamo putting together a book, and we want to interview all the top ministers. This was the theme of the book, which you will relate to this, Brother Josh. There was a phenomenon happening in the Nation of Islam that you grow up in the nation, you go to University of Islam, you graduate, and then you're gone. You're not around. You don't share in the culture of the Nation of Islam. You just leave. So we wanted to put this book together that would inspire the young Muslims. So like I told you, I had a karate school. So Olive went by my school while I'm teaching and doing some different photographs. We went to the park and we jumping in the air doing the Bruce Lee stuff. And we did stuff down at the press, shooting all kind of stuff, put together in this book form. We interviewed Minister Farrakhan at the Salam restaurant on 83rd and Cottage, not the one that's there now. Mm. And we're interviewing him. And one of the questions I remember that I asked, and I thought it was a good question, I said, Minister Farrakhan, tell us, what is it about young Muslims coming up in the Nation of Islam that they don't stay around? They just leave. He said, well, brother, let's show you how deep the minister was back then. It's 1972. He said, brother, you know, when you're in the Nation of Islam, you have to mature into your faith. You know, a lot of what you're doing is because you came up through a family, your mother, your father, you know, and in your case, brother, your older sister who raised you. So you were a Muslim because of her, not because your father and your mother, your brothers and your sisters. It was 11 of us. And out of the 11, all the girls of the 4 girls came into the nation except my oldest sister, Shirley. Out of the brothers, it was me and my brother, Gregory, and Michael. Michael, who I've lost him to. Michael was like Terrence Howard, really good looking guy. He was a pimp, and I always say it in quotes because he was a broke pimp like Terrence. You know, he had a car, but the bumper was a different color than the door. But he had all of these women, but he was having sex with these women. I'm saying this so that people can understand, as a Muslim, we got family just like you. Some accept Islam, some do not. And Michael, he was a pimp, and he was a very unsuccessful pimp because he would always get caught up in something and he would go to jail. And I'd get these beautiful letters from him. In the name of Allah, magnificent, the merciful, and baby brother, when I get out, I'm going to stay on the right path. And tears would stream down my face. It's going to come in. Yeah. He'd get out, and the attraction of that world was just too strong. Pull him into that, go back to that lifestyle, and he died. And we went to the funeral. And days later, one of my nieces said, Uncle, I need to tell all you all that Michael didn't die of pneumonia, something to that effect. He died of AIDS. Now, remember, this is back in the day when AIDS was just coming out. And the first response was, my brother wasn't gay. Well, no, Uncle, he was having sex with all of those prostitutes he had. Half of them were pregnant. Yeah. Oh, so it came to me, you know, and we lost Michael. Okay. So fast forward to where we at now? 73. We talked about the minister. Okay. So the minister, the minister went back to the time that we were putting the book together, which was 1972. Let's fast forward back to the 80s, early 81, 82. And he's asked me about my sister. And Brother Duane, what about Brother So? Have you heard from him? Now, remember, this is like 80, 81. The minister is rebuilding right now. I don't know if he even had the final call building. I think he was doing the paper from the basement of his home. Okay. So, he's just talking good times, you know, the believers, brother, and don't you miss the beans? You know, like when old timers get together and talk about old stuff, right? And then I'm thinking, okay, man, what are we going to talk about this, you know, me working, because I need to make this money, right? So now I get my portfolio, not from NBC. This is from when I worked at Muhammad Speaks newspaper, some of the drawings from the progress section and stuff. And he's looking at, oh, brother, that's good. And how well did you know Brother Majid? And what about Brother Gerald 2X, brother? Where did that brother live? You know how to minister. I said, Brother Gerald 2X, believe it or not, Brother Minister, he lived in Detroit. He was a janitor for the Detroit public school system. And he just did those drawings and submitted those to Muhammad Speaks, and they published them. And one day, the messenger's looking at him, and he chuckled at his drawings and said, I hope we're paying this brother. And then he looked around and they like looking all stupefied. They weren't even paying Brother Gerald 2X. Make
Mm.
sure we pay this brother, because he was just sending them in, right? And I would tell Brother Minister about that. So now we get down to the business, okay? Now remember, he's rebuilding the nation. And he said, well, Brother Duane, I just have one question for you, brother. Do you believe that there is no God but Allah who came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad, and that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad is indeed his servant and last messenger? And I had to hesitate on that, Josh.
Mm.
I tell that to believe. I said, man, what do you mean you have? I said, man, you don't understand our mindset at that time. I believe that Elijah Muhammad was dead and gone. I had moved forward, got into the engineering that the most honorable Elijah Muhammad told us to get into, and I'm in television. My title at NBC is engineer. And I said, I guess so, brother. Now imagine if I asked you that and you said you guess so. Now the minister, being as merciful and graceful as he is, he didn't say, nigga, get out of my house. He said, well, brother, soon you'll be able to answer that question with a strong affirmation. And I'm like,
Mm.
yes, sir, brother. He said, well, brother, you could help me, couldn't you? I'm like, yes, sir, I'll help you, right? So I start coming out to the final call. And I would see some of the older brothers, Brother Benny Mo, okay, which you had, my brother. I see Benny Mo. I met Benny Mo in 1969. I had just become a senior fruit. The lieutenant told me, Brother Duane, line the brothers up. We going door to door, because we would never attend the meetings, like the Wednesday night meetings. Those meetings were for the lost found. We would go door to door with the Muhammad Speaks. So, Brother Duane, I want you to line up a squad of men, and we go into whatever area we're going to. I got them all lined up. You know, you're doing this positive talking. We're going to raise the dead. And I noticed a brother standing off to the side, black
Mm.
suit on, this huge black bow tie. I said, brother, come on, fall in, brother. And the brother said to me, brother, I don't fall in. My brain short circuit, because I didn't know what to do. Man telling me I'm a lieutenant in training. I'm like, okay. I ran to Brother Raymond. I said, Brother Raymond, I got a brother that won't fall in ranks, brother. He said, brother, who is that, brother? And I point, I see that brother right there? He said, oh, that's Brother Benny. That's okay. Let him go out with y'all. He's still processing. I'm like, oh, okay. And I ran back to the brothers, and I'm talking to Brother Benny. I said, hey, man, you still processing, man. I can help you get that. He said, no, Allah will let me know when I need to get my ex to do my recital, blah, blah, blah. He said, you know my brother, don't you know Bojack? And I'm like, no, brother, I don't think I don't know Bojack. And he told me, he said, yeah, the brother that's the janitor for the school,
Mm.
which is Brother Farrakhan.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
I know, but we don't know him as Bojack. That was his street name. Right? So now I got a close relationship with Benny, his brother, Farrakhan. Then he had
Yes, sir.
another brother come in named Cornelius Fide. So now
Mm.
I'm learning all Benny Mo's family. They said, man, you need to meet our mom and our daddy. All right. Go to their house and meet all the brothers and the sisters, and we become like family. Just
Praise.
from that incident of me telling him to get in. My fascination was, man, why ain't this man in the nation? Because
Mm.
when you go through that processing, you try to do it as fast as possible to get your ex. Benny was taking his time for his own reasons, and I fell in love with that brother. And we've been friends since. 1979, brother was probably almost 10 years older than me, maybe eight to 10 years older than me. But again, as a senior fruit, 16, I had friends and brothers that were in their 30s, their 40s, because these are grown men. The ones 16, 17 years old, I wasn't hanging out with them because they were like little boys to me. Because when you hanging around men, you tend to emulate men. And
Yes,
so
sir.
that's when Benny and I became close. So now let's get back to 1981, 82. And I started coming around the final call building. I started seeing brothers that I knew from way back, like I mentioned, Brother Benny. There was another brother I saw. I hope he sees this. His name was Ralph at the time. His name is Brother Sabir. He's another brother you need to talk to. He's out in Gary, Indiana.
Mm.
And he came up to me and said, D, when you coming back to rejoin and help the minister? I said, rejoin what, man? What do you mean rejoin? Yeah, you got to do your form 4. It was some form you had to do. I said, but brother, I got my ex when I was 16 and I'm Muhammad now. He said, yeah, but the minister needs brothers like you. See, sometimes you got to confront a person and say, hey, what do you want to do? And we need you to help do this thing. Because nobody was putting any kind of pressure on me to come and help. I was just coming around and, of course, listening to the minister. Minister stood me up a couple of times because Mustafa said, brother, Daddy, there's Brother Duane down, and they stand this Negro up. I'm like, man, what you standing me up for, man? But I had this reverence from people that I really didn't learn till later. Now I'm going to go back. Now we're still on 81, 82.
Yes,
I'm going
sir.
to remember when I told you that I got a phone call when I was 16 years old. Why did they call me? Secretary didn't know me. Brother Majid didn't know me. Why would they call me to come and work at the press? Who
Mm.
was my connect? The connect was my sister reminding the dear holy apostle, Brother Duane, my baby brother. The messenger gets on the phone to Brother Majid to hire this young man, put him in an apprenticeship program so he can learn, so he can be an artist like you in the paper. I didn't learn that till much later, okay? So therefore, I got this, I was blessed to be born at a certain time and to have a sister that had a connection that none of us will ever understand. You know, my sister's connection with the dear holy apostle, I can't even describe it to you to this day. Remember, I
Mm.
told you in 1975, the first person I called was my sister.
Yes, sir.
And she was calm. She never accepted he was dead. Never. So naturally, when she said it, there was no way in the world I was going to go back and forth with her. But this woman knew the Quran back and forth. She knew the Bible. So anytime I would ask her something, she would give me a reference and say, now you go study, you know. From her, I learned to respect prayer. When we were little, whenever June would pray, she would get off into the corner with her rug. Prayer. We had that TV on, those cartoons, turn it off. If you were talking, shut up. Because as a child, you're learning to respect prayer and prayer time. So as I got older, you know, I figure, okay, now I'm coming into my own as Islam, 12 years old. I want to do Ramadan. June said, yeah, you could do Ramadan at 12. Now, just so you know, Brother Josh, Ramadan for us back then was in December,
Mm.
okay? And it was during that Christmas season to show you the wisdom of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. He
Yes,
had us
sir.
doing Ramadan during December so that we wouldn't partake in that foolishness. And we all know how you're not respecting Jesus during that time because you're getting in debt. This Christmas tree, the celebration of Nimrod. So we understood all of that. And again, that's what you and I learned in kindergarten, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
my very first Ramadan, I couldn't make it. It was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm like, I'm starving. I said, June, when are you going to start like cooking? She said, look, why don't you go read, Duane? You should be reading during Ramadan. So I thought she meant like a book or something. She meant you're supposed to read so many sections to 30. So I pick up a magazine and it's got pictures of food, turkey with the gravy, and it's making me hungrier. So now I'm like, yeah, you know, June, that reading is not helping me. I didn't know she meant the Quran. I learned it later, of course.
Yes, sir.
And man, once she started cooking, brother, the sauteed onions in there and the cabbage or whatever she was cooking, that was like the best meal that I had in my life. And I told her that. She said, Duane, I'm going to tell you why it tastes so good. Because you eat all the time. So when you're young, you eat in the day and the afternoon. And so by the time you're eating a good food, you can't appreciate it. And I'm like, man, that's how food's really supposed to taste. She said, well, you need to go back to how do you read that and you'll see why the food tastes so good. And then as I'm reading it, and the messenger says you eat around between 5 and 7. So that means that technically speaking, you shouldn't have been eating nothing during the day. But you know, as a young person, we eat because our friends eat. Hey, man, let me have some of that. You know, you're snacking in a whole bit. So as you get older, your discipline gets better and you're able to control it. So the messenger training us for Ramadan, eating after night when there's nightfall, that was the time we were supposed to eat anyway. It was 5 o'clock. That's
Yes,
when
sir.
you the hardest Ramadan for me was not when I was 12. The very first Ramadan I did when it was like in August. And I
Mm.
was in here eating like 9:30 at night. And I'm like, man, I don't think I'm going to make this one. But as you know, after a while, you begin to do that, and you're fine. So now let's go back to now at the time when I met the minister again at the final call administration building. So I started coming out and kind of volunteering and doing whatever I do. And if you remember, Josh, and you should remember, the minister's primary message was recorded on the medium we call an audio cassette. And if Josh was here, I'm sure he had to tell you the history of the final call in the audio cassette. So I'm coming and I'm observing the operation of the minister teaching, them high-speed duplicating audio cassettes, and they were sold for $10. Okay? I said, man, the minister's got to step into the modern age. At that time, we're talking like 81, 82, people were buying what we call VHS. This was before DVD. The VHS was the big deal. And for those who were really sophisticated, got what they call a Sony Betamax. I said, Brother Minister, you need to have your lectures on VHS. And the revenue would be generated would be much great because we can't sell a VHS for 10. People are used to purchasing those for like $24.95. I gave him a price. He said, brother, put the proposal together and let's see what happens. Put the proposal together. See, the minister is a respecter of the written word. You can talk about you want to do this and yeah, brother, I love you. And I'm going to probably say yes to you, but put it down. I put the proposal together. I proofread it, make sure it was correct. I called in my consultants, which was 3 white boys that I knew from Channel 44 and NBC that construct TV studios. And I said, look, man, I'm trying to put together this studio for Minister Farrakhan. And like, man, could we help in that? I'm like, yeah, that's why I got you helping me with this proposal. And so they helped me with the proposal. I put it together. The minister saw, I said, brother, this is excellent. You go ahead and do that, brother. And whatever you need to do, you just let me know. I went back to the 3 Caucasian workers. I said, look here, man, I need you all to help me put this together. And they said, well, we'll do it under one condition. I'm like, oh, man, they've been cahooting together to see, what do you mean? What? If we can meet Minister Farrakhan, can we meet him? I'm like, yeah, we're doing this for him. Now, this is at 79th and Emerald, the final call building, and it would have been in the basement of the final call. So they come by, and after work, we down there, we tearing up stuff, running cable, installing it, the whole bit. One day while we're working, the minister comes downstairs. You know the minister's sense of humor. Who is this down in this basement, tearing up my basement? And they don't know it's him. He comes around the corner, and they see me, standing almost at attention talking. So they look around, and they all get up, and they all lining up in attention, right? And I say, Brother Minister, this is so-and-so and so, and I gave him all the names. And naturally, he repeats their names so he can remember their names to say it back properly. That's how respectful this man is. So he introduces himself and shakes their hand. He goes about his business. He shook his hand, man. Now, these are white guys that you see at United Center, at the stadium down there where you at, behind the scenes with the lumberjack type shirts on, the jeans and gym shoes, headset on, running around. The respect that they had for this man, okay? So we finished construction. I approached them. I said, look, guys, I need your invoices so I can get you all paid. So get it to me. And I go up to the minister, and he said, Brother Duane, you got the invoices so we can pay him? He didn't know what it was going to cost. Whatever it costs, we're going to pay for it. I go back down. I say, hey, man, where your invoices? I said, man, what invoice? Man, we ain't charging for this. I said, man, we got to give you something. Man, what did we tell you? All we want to do is meet the minister. They did not collect 1 penny, brother, for the construction of that control. Many who are watching this don't even know this. I don't even know if the minister knows it or remembers it, right? So we constructed it. It was done in March of 83. And if you look at any lecture that was done at the final call on video, it was from 1983 to 1989, because in 89, we moved over to Stony Island. And of course, I was instrumental in us also putting that control room together, okay? And as the minister would always say, the rest is history. And we would I would say, Brother Minister, when you talk about something, you can't say the rest is history, brother, because in your mind, you know it, but us Negroes, we want to know the detail. And of course, naturally, he chuckle and he go into detail on it, right? So now we're rocking and rolling, man. All of the lectures are coming out of the final call administration building. So we're able to distribute his lecture on audio cassette and VHS. So naturally, with the new medium coming in, it did help to generate revenue. And I was not an employee or a laborer of the final call. Remember, I'm a volunteer because I'm still at NBC. So 1983 is the completion of the studio. I got up with this one. Me and the minister up on the third floor at the final call building. And I'm like, brother minister, look, construction is done. I got some other plans on getting you out there to the masses of the people. I'm ready to leave NBC and come work with you, brother minister. And we walked, he stopped in his tracks. And he said these words to me, which broke my heart. Brother Duane, never leave the devil's job to work for the nation unless the nation can pay you what they're paying you or more. So in my mind, I'm thinking, man, y'all can't pay me what NBC is paying me. I mean, that was 6 figures, 401k, Blue Cross, Blue Shield. I didn't care about none of that. I just wanted to come and help him. So naturally, my lack of maturation again, I was kind of hurt because I want to come work with you. You're going to tell me no. I put the studio together. I mean, he said, no, brother, you wait for the nation to grow more. This is in 1983. I'm like, yes, sir. I bit my lip like a soldier. The best advice he could ever give me. Why, brother Josh? 1983, I've been 3 years at NBC. 84, 85, 95, years go by. 1998, Brother Olive Muhammad calls me. Olive is one of the grandsons of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, son of Brother Jabra, who was Herbert Muhammad, who was the manager of Muhammad. He calls me and say, D, look, the minister wanted to do this documentary on his vision. And I'm like, okay. And what you need me for? He said, man, we need to go ahead and do this. Me and you will shoot it. I said, no, we need a producer. I got a friend here at NBC, Adele Hodge. She can be the producer / writer to help us formulate this. And he said, so we're going to go interview the minister on this particular date. Like I said, it's like 1998. I think it was during the time the minister was ill. He didn't do any lectures that year. So we're about to go down to the farm to do the interview. And the young lady, the producer, couldn't make it. And I told Olive, look, Adele won't be able to go with us. And Olive said, well, look, man, you go ahead and you interview the minister. Just lock your camera down and I'll work both cameras. Because I was going to work a camera and Olive was going to work the other camera. So now I'm Greg Gumbo, okay, who make Malcolm X, never mind. That's a Dave Chappelle joke. Anyway, I'm interviewing the minister now. I got my little questions and everything. And I'm asking the minister the questions and he's answering, of course. And then during that time, when you had a camera, you had to change the tape in there like every 60 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. So Olive would say, cut, got to change tapes. We stopped the cameras and I said to the minister, but the minister, I got to come and help you. Now, remember, I asked him this in 83 and he broke my little sensitive heart. And he said, brother, we got to talk about that. And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I just say? I put it out there, but I couldn't pull it back. You know, because part of me was sincere in wanting to help him, but the other part, and there's a book called The Golden Handcuffs. I want anybody viewing this to go read that book. The Golden Handcuffs is when you're in a career and you pay very well, you got great benefits, but you want to leave that. But it's difficult to leave because there's so many trappings in that, which is, of course, the economy of it. So we doing the interview, we going on, tape change again. Now the minister follow. Yeah, Brother Duane, now look, when can we talk about you leaving, brother? Because I think the time is right now. And I'm like, I'm like, yes, sir. So we pack up, we're leaving, me and Olive in the car, going back to Chicago, and I'm stone cold quiet in the car. Olive said, D, what's up? Why are you so quiet, man? I said, man, did you hear what I said to the minister about leaving NBC? Now, Olive is at ABC at the time. I think this is before he went to CBS. And I said, yeah, and then I'm going to have to leave. Man, you ain't leaving no NBC, man, come work for no final call. I said, man, I told the minister, man, what am I supposed to? Oh, man, come on. So he dismissed me totally. He didn't think I was going to leave. And part of me wanted to stay because of the benefits. And well, maybe I can help him in doing it part-time or something. So I go back to NBC and I talk to one of my union stewards, real close brother of mine. And I told him, because he know the work I did with the minister. He knows it very well. And I said, man, how do I get out of this? I want to take a leave of absence from NBC because I want to go help the minister. He said, yeah, you just take a leave of absence. You won't get paid. And all the other union brethren do it. You just go up to the and let them know. You should get that with no problem. So I go up to the office and say, hey, I want to do a leave of absence. Now, it's up to the company to do the leave of absence, because if they need you for a particular assignment, they can't let you do the leave of absence. So they immediately say, well, no, we got the Olympics coming up in Korea. We want you to come. We want you to go do the Olympics. And I'm like, yeah, but can't you get, well, no, because we don't have too many people that we can have leave here because we need other TDs to be here. And they gave me all these reasons why I couldn't go. All right. So I had to come up with something else. And whatever I came up with, they had a reason for me to stay, that they couldn't allow me to go. All within the contract now. So I told my union steward, I said, man, we need to talk to the union president, because I think it's some discrimination and racism going on, man, because I'm a Black Muslim. That's what's going on. And he said, yeah, we'll go to the union president. We'll go down and talk to him. I sit across from the union president. It was like talking to an FOI. This guy told me right out of his mouth, he said, Muhammad, what are you really trying to do? Why are you trying to take the leave back? And I didn't want to give him my personal business to go into detail of, running the video department for Minister Farrakhan. And I said, because I want to work in the inner city and train young people up in broadcasting, which was true. The person's at the final call and whoever else, whatever church needs that service, I can train their whole crew. And he said, well, they're not going to accept no leave of absence from me. You're going to have to resign. Man, when resign hit you, you're like, that was the reality that hit me in the head. You cannot serve two masters, young man. He didn't use those words, but that's what he meant. And I said, well, yeah, he says, simple letter, do it, they'll sign off on it, and they have to let you go. They can't just force you to work because you're doing a resignation. You're resigning from your position. Now, you've been here 20 years. You sure this is what you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm sounding all weak and mealy mouthed, because the realization is hitting me that this is real what you're talking to the minister. You can't play with this man. And I finally confirmed in my mind, this is what I got to do, okay? Because I need to help the minister. He needs my help. I've been at NBC now for 20 years. And he sees that I've been a seasoned person, been all over the world with him, NBC, all of that. And I'm seasoned in every position. I can go to any TV station in the world and run their TV station, no matter what the medium is. So the timing was perfect. So now, this is August of 2000. I'm gone from NBC, and I started with the Nation of Islam. They hired me as the technical engineer for the broadcast department for the Nation of Islam. I don't know what that title meant. I just knew that I had to turn it around and get it right. And I had so many days in which to do it. And I did it all before the time. I had to minister on television on a show in Chicago, Channel 62 WJYS. And I had them, I increased the cable access channels, all of that. I just blew up. And there was a brother that they hired from England as the general manager. And I would counsel this brother because he was from England. I said, brother, I know you're Muslim and you're from England, but you're over Negroes here in America. And they're not like that Negro in England. You have to deal forthrightly with us. So I'm counseling this brother. I'm saying all this because he didn't do a very good job of what he was doing. But I wasn't trying to get his position, but there were others trying to get his position. Finally got to the point it was so bad they had to let this man go. And this is how they did it. We all, as managers who got hired during that time, I'm telling you, 2000, evaluation, I'm reading my evaluation with the minister's administrative assistant and the accountant. And I'm reading my evaluation. It was all glowing. So I'm kind of glancing through it. And I put it to the side. I said, oh, thank you, sister. Look, what we said, Brother Duane, did you read the whole eval? I said, yeah, it's a part I missed. They said, read that paragraph right there, brother. And I'm looking, and it said, recommendation from the board that Brother Duane becomes the interim general manager of the final call. And
Mm.
I'm like, whoa, wait a minute now. That's what I signed up for. And they said, Brother Duane, do you agree that brother is doing the job that he should be? Well, no. And I've talked with brother. Let me work with him. No, brother, it's at a point that he has to go. Matter of fact, what you're going to do, you're going to go in there and talk to him and let him know what the board decided, and you are to walk him out. Oh my God, I got to fire this man. So I go in the office and I explain to brother what has transpired. He was not shocked from it because he had been getting, this is brother, this is not the way we do such and such. He was not the person for the job. Okay. And there's nothing personal against him. Just wasn't, it's like if you got in a Cessna and you went up and flew it yourself, Josh. All praise due to Allah, man. He was a good brother, man. He had a great platform, but he shouldn't have gotten that plane, man. You got to be trained for that. So brother leaves and they install me as the general manager slash broadcasting engineer, whatever
Mm.
that type, over that.
Mm.
And I said, interim, that means temporary. I said, yeah, but we're going to get somebody else. We're going to hire somebody else from, we're going to do a nationwide search. Never happened. I'm doing both gigs, man. I'm running back and forth, traveling with the minister. But when I'm back, I had to have my assistant do. It was very difficult to do both because at that time, the facilities had to be turned around. And as the minister would say, the rest is history. I did my part in it. Then I departed from the final call, I think in 2017, 18, right?
Mm.
Because now I'm making the transition, which is where I made from broadcasting. What I did with NBC and Channel 44, that's called broadcast television. I wanted to make the transition to filmmaking, right? So I said, in my research, I got to get a degree in filmmaking because filmmaking is it's like the cousin of broadcasting. So I enrolled at Governor State here in Illinois, GSU. Talked to the head of the department, had to put my resume together to get my transcripts from Columbia College, the whole bit. And the head of the department, when he saw my extensive work and who my recommendations were, and these were people in television that he sees on television that wrote me recommendations. And he said, oh my God, we got to have you in this program. And I said, and me, for the young people, I was never a lover of school. Sitting in a classroom, hearing somebody yak, yak, yak. I'm like the hands-on, hey, let's do what you're talking about. And I said, well, how long will it take me to get my MFA out of this institution? They said, oh, about 2 years, you should be out of here. And I said, what can I do to get out like a year and a half? Ooh, you'd have to take more classes, a load of classes. And I'm like, okay. Because I knew in my mind I was going to get out of there in a year and a half because I finished Columbia in 3 years, right? Again, I'm not a lover. I'm not anti-school. I think it's too much of this and not enough hands-on. So while I'm at the school, the head of the department approached me like the head of the department at Columbia and say, hey, would you be interested in a GA position? That's a graduate assistant. And I said, would you give me the background of what that means? He said, well, you'll be in charge of the department that distributes the equipment to students who are going out to do their films. And if you need to help them, to instruct them how to use the equipment. It's almost like what I did at Columbia, but at the graduate level. So I did that. And I worked on a few films. We got a new professor in from Korea, and him and I became very close. So we started doing a bunch of short films together, different projects together. But now I graduate, and before I graduate, they say, look, would you be interested in teaching here at Governor State? Now, this is while I was a student. And I said, well, I don't even have my degree yet. He said, well, maybe we can do something pending or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I got like a few credit hours to go. So it didn't work out. It didn't work out. Graduate, I leave Governor State. The professor calls me. He said, look, we're doing some stuff for the Illinois Arts Council. Would you want to help us with that? I'm like, sure, no problem. So we do these documentaries for the Illinois Arts Council. And we're working on one of the films. Professor calls me back again, Professor Park. He's from Korea. He said, look, Muhammad, you remember the script girl you were talking to at one of the films? She really liked you. And I'm like, man, Professor, this is a hookup? What do you mean she liked me? He said, no, not like that. She really liked your attitude, your professionalism, how knowledgeable you are in doing that, the film we're working on. And she's the head of the hiring at Loyola University. I said, wait a minute, you're talking about so and so and so and so. And he said, yeah, that's her. And so I called her up and she said, yeah, I would be interested in you being an adjunct professor here to teach the undergraduate courses. And I said, would be honored to do that. Then she said, okay, we do the interview and she loves what I'm saying. And they hired me. This was last year. So I've been teaching at Loyola University.
Go ahead.
I teach high school on the days I'm not at Loyola. So now I get a call from Governor State, from the head of the department, say, would you be interested in teaching a film history class? I'm like, hey, no problem. As a professor, you only teach 1 or 2 days a week. I shouldn't put this secret out there to everybody. But a professor does not teach like a high school teacher. High school teachers teaches like Monday through Friday, 8 hours. Professor may do a class here that's 3 hours, another class there 3. I'm sorry, people, but that's how it is. So though I am a professor at 2 different universities,
Professor,
I don't put it like that. But it's impactful of what I'm teaching. So, you know, and I thank Allah, man, for putting me in a position of a believer in the Nation of Islam that's been in a position that a lot of people haven't been in. Your father, I'm glad I remembered this. One day I was doing a live shot while I was at NBC. And the FOI was in the project somewhere, and I'm setting up my live shot. For those who don't understand what a live shot is, that's when you see one of those television trucks and they have the mask on top and it goes up high. And your father sees me, you know, talking to the guy, the engineer, and I'm going back and forth. And he said, Brother Duane, you know, you're in a blessed position, brother. And I said, yes, sir. He was the Supreme Captain at the time. This when he was stationed in Chicago. He said, brother, you're in a unique position that nobody has ever been in. I said, thank you, brother. So after I got the mask up and I'm inside the truck, his words are going through my head. And I'm like, you know what? I never thought about that. I have been in positions of a young man who was born in the projects to be doing what I do, to meet who I've met. I've been with the presidents of the United States as close as I am to this appliance that I'm talking to you. I remember when President Carter was doing this tour on a train, I was one of the cameramen that sat down and talked with this dude. You know, well, how long you been in television? I'm like, since 19. And I'm thinking, that's the president of the United States, man. And here I am from the hood, right up on this man. But of course, I had to get clearance. One of the other blessings I had, what a lot of people don't get, is meeting Michael Jackson.
Yes, sir.
The Michael Jackson. And that happened with the minister. And we were down in Phoenix, and out of the blue, we were down there for some production. I can't remember. And he said, by the way, Brother Duane, you're going to be going to Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch. Now, you know, the minister has a sense of humor. So I'm waiting for the joke. And he's talking serious. I said, excuse me, Brother Minister. When you say meet him, well, yes, brother, you'll be his, he needs a cameraman that he can trust because we're going to do a documentary on his life because this guy, dude named Bashar, I can't think his whole name. He was the Palestinian that did the documentary on Michael that made him look very foolish up in the tree and the whole bit. Yes, and at this time, the Muslims were at the Neverland Ranch. They were cooking for Brother Michael Jackson. They were taking care of him because he didn't trust a lot of people around him. The FBI had came into his home and tore up his mattresses looking for child pornography or whatever. So he trusted the Muslims at this time to be around him, to cook for him, to secure him. So he said, yeah, you'll be meeting Michael. Joshua, my son, will meet you at his place and introduce you to Michael, and you go from there. And now, you know, my little heart is like racing. Man, Michael Jackson, ABC 1, 2, 3. We fly out to California, and he lived in a place I believe called Encino. That's the portion of California. A lot of wealthy movie stars live. We get to his compound, and I say compound because when you get to the gate, you drive almost a mile on his property to get to the main house. You're passing by a water pumping station. He got his own fire station. Then I'm looking off in the distance. I see a giraffe walking, and I see elephants. And then I'm looking at Ferris wheels and roller coasters. I'm like, man, what is this? And then we finally get up to his house, but we go past the house, and he had like some smaller cottages on the land. So the driver takes us to one of the cottages, and Josh is in there. So I go in with my camera. You know, I always have to have my camera next to me. Put it down on the ground. I say, hey, Josh, man, come on, man. When you gonna hook me up with Michael, man, so we can get this done, man? We've been driving. Man, I drove like a mile before we. And he said, man, Michael, right there. And he points, and who's like 20 feet from me? Michael Jackson. And he's putting clothes in a book bag, in a like a gym bag. And now I'm totally embarrassed because I'm talking about Michael in the third person. And Brother Leonard was on the other side of the room. Brother Leonard was the chief of staff at one time, Leonard Farrakhan. Michael comes straight to me. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Duane. Like, what the man? He got the greetings down and he got my name down. I did not know that Josh was prepping him for me. That this is brother, man, this brother's done a lot. You know how you all do. Like, you introduce me, you give me all these accolades, and I never feel worthy of them, just so you know. And he says, yes, brother. And this came out of his mouth. I got to repeat it anytime I talk about Mike. He said, brother, anyone you meet that you talk about me, our meeting, that I tell you this, I want the whole world to know. I would never do anything to harm children. I love children. I would do nothing to hurt children. And I'm thinking in my head, Mike, you don't have to tell me this. I'm like, man, I never believed that anyway. And now we are close, man. I'm looking at the hair, and he's a little taller than me. And his voice wasn't that way up high like you hear. You know, he had a higher voice, but it wasn't that voice that you hear. So after I focused and started listening to him, because I'm just like checking him out. This is Michael Jackson, man, telling me that I'm innocent. Man, you ain't got to tell me that. And then we finally started talking about what the project is. And he was telling, because we were headed to the courthouse. He was going to make an appearance at the court. And then we were going to go back into the caravan and come back to the compound. And he's telling me how to shoot it. And I'm like, oh, Michael, no, we can't do it that way. I start telling him how it's going to be done. Next thing I know, we're not in no argument, but we got a disagreement. And I said, oh, and then it came to me, man, I'm telling this man how to shoot this. He's done music videos, Ben, the Rat, and all of that stuff. And I said, oh, Michael, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be disrespectful. He said, no, brother, I like that, brother, because nobody wants to tell me no. They all want to say yes, yes, yes. And I was telling them no because it was a difference in how we should shoot something. That's all it was. But I grew his respect from me talking to him in a manner that I wasn't a sycophant, that I'm a professional. You got me here and I got all of these accolades. And this is how it's done as far as documentary is concerned. As far as those music videos and you moonwalking and turn into a werewolf, that's Landis's job. My job is doing documentaries, you know? And so we hugged and everything, and we were cool. We had a little time. So naturally, Josh takes me on a tour. I say, man, how you gonna take me? He said, D, just follow me. You know how Josh is, right? So I'm waiting in the car. He said, here, wait in the car, and we're gonna drive around. And then he gets in the back seat, and this, yeah, is it 3 o'clock? I know it could be 3.
Yes, sir.
It is 3. Yeah, because I have. Anyway, and I look through the rearview mirror. I'm sitting in the front, and it's him and Janet Jackson. And I'm like, man, that look. He said, Duane, I want you to meet Janet. And I turn around, and I did a double take, and it's Janet Jackson. And we introduced himself, and he's hugged up with it. He said, man, I said, can I get a hug? I mean, so I can tell all my friends I hug, and get out of the car. And we hugged, and I did a little interview of her, and then I saw Mr. Jackson. Hold the camera up. I'm about to do the interview. Now, Mr. Jackson, what do you think about them charging your son with such a... And this response was, well, you know, it's all going to come out in the trial. If he's guilty, they'll do what they need to do. And if he's that... And I said, okay, well, thank you for this interview. Nowhere in the world I'm using that, right? So I talked to him, and then Eddie Griffin was on set. Eddie Griffin is the comedian. And I saw him, he was looking serious. Usually when you see comedians, they not telling jokes. He's looking serious. I said, Eddie, I'd like to get an interview of you later. You know what we... He said, yeah, brother, anytime, you know, you talk to me, because Michael, my man, you know how you talk. Yes, sir. We'll get later. So now it's time to go to the courthouse. And we all get in the caravan and we headed to the courthouse. And I'm documenting everything. Michael in the car, talking, all of that. Get to the courthouse. I'm following him along. Crowd is outside, just thousands of people, because they knew he would be there to make his appearance. He comes back out. We're going to the caravan, because now I'm thinking we're getting in the caravan, and we headed back to Encino. As he's getting into the vehicle, he's stepping up on top of the vehicle, and he motions to me to come on. I'm like, man, he want me to get, okay, fine. So I hand my camera off. My nephew was with me, Abdullah Yassin. I hand him the camera, I climb up, take the camera back from him, and then I'm shooting Michael on top of the vehicle with another cameraman. My phone, this is my 3 o'clock, brother. So you going to edit this, or do I, because I have to?
No, listen, it's okay. We'll come back for part 2. And
okay,
man,
because I got a 3 o'clock that's here now, and I think we're a little bit after 3 on Central Standard Time.
Yes, sir.
And we'll pick it up on the Michael Jackson issue and take it from there. Okay, my brother? I know I've kept you at least an hour or 2.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Brother Duane. And thank you, everyone who's watching. Go ahead, Brother Duane, log off. I'll just read the comments and all of that, and we'll work it out. But thank you, Brother Duane. May Allah
thank you, brother.
Bless you, sir.
Thank you, sir. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. All right, everybody who's still here, I want to read all of your comments. I just want to do a brief 60-second commercial break for all of the sponsors of the People's Podcast. Man, this was an amazing interview. I can't wait to upload this to YouTube. One moment. There we go. He does television and film editing. Please reach out if you need any of that. Sister Naima, Stay On Point Dance Academy. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country. Sister Miriam, ABC I Love Me children's book and coloring book. My father's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ. My 2 books, Cleopatra, which is a children's book, and No Father, No Excuse, both of which are available on Amazon. Perfect. All right. Excellent. All right. And briefly, everybody's just sending me so many messages. I just want to let everyone know that I want to read all the comments. Well, thank you, Sister Miriam. Sister Naima saying, Assalamu alaikum salam. Minister Jamil was saying the village of Dalton should be proud of our brother. He's an asset to the municipality. Thank you, Brother Daniel E. Alaikum salam. Sister Doris, very good testimony. Brother Daniel E. again. Brother Yahya, walaikum salam, dear family. Thank you very much. Thank you all. This is great. Thank you, everyone who was watching. Man, amazing. Man, everyone who showed love, I just want to make sure that I shouted everyone out. Shout out to Brother Kente, Brother Musa, Sister Auntie, Brother Nelson Ramos, all of our YouTube family, Brother Duke. Man, thank you, everyone who's watching. Brother Roosevelt, thank you very much. About to upload this to YouTube. Brother Reginald, young God brother. Thank you all very much. All praises to Allah. Thank you, Sister Naima. Thank you, Milf Abernathy. And boom. Thank you, Rashad, saying that was dope. This first time Rashad commented, so you know he has some kind of connection to my team. Thank you, everybody who's watching. Part 2 is going to be coming. Man, so everybody just stay tuned. All praises to Allah. Thank y'all for watching. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off for the People's Podcast. Assalamu alaikum.